Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Sam, and this video is for whoever that is Muslim, Buddhist, or even Christian, and any other faith, any other religion. This is for everyone because I'm going to talk about the case for divinity of Jesus. It's going to be historical cases, psychological, prophecy, archaeological, and reason itself. And if you notice across centuries, continents, and cultures, no figure has sparked more debate, devotion, and doubt than Jesus of Nazareth. So it's really important to see why. The first reason, Jesus' own claims. Before going to that, I have a friend who is PhD, is really smart and skeptic. And when I told her Jesus himself declared divinity. So contrary to popular belief, Jesus didn't merely hint divinity, he declared it. He said, before Abraham was born, I am. And my friend was like, well, there's so many people who have claimed they are God. She mentioned this name, that name, and she was like, well, do you think we have to accept all of them? Why do you accept Jesus? So my answer was, if somebody claims something, they have to bring evidences, right? If I walk into the room and I say, I am God, I have to be able to save myself from death. If you kill me, I have to raise myself. That's the very first thing that person who claims to be God should do. Because that is that boundary that no human being could have broken it in their own hand, except Jesus. And you might say that's a lie, but bear with me. So they must be able to raise themselves from death. They must be able to heal. They must be able to bring something out of nothing, like in this thin air, if the person just does abracadabra and brings something out. So that's something that a person who claims God should be able to do. Now, let's go back to the reasons that I've collected from this book. Case for Christ by Lee Strobel, a former atheist. So Jesus said, before Abraham was born, I am. Using the sacred name of God from Exodus, he also said, I and the Father are one. He forgave sins, accepted worship, and claimed divine authority. At his trial, when asked if he was the Messiah, he quoted Daniel 7:13-14, describing the Son of Man coming on clouds of heaven, a clear divine identity. These aren't vague spiritual statements, they are direct claims to divinity. But you might say, maybe Gospels are lie. So, maybe Gospels are lie. The reason for Gospel account, which is the minimum thing I'm mentioning here, is the eyewitness testimony. The Gospels are not legend. Nobody claims they are legends. They are eyewitness reports. Matthew and John were among the 12 disciples. Mark wrote Peter's account. Luke was a historian who interviewed eyewitnesses. Their accounts include embarrassing details. No forger would invent the disciples fleeing, Peter denying Jesus, women whose testimony wasn't legally valued being the first to see the empty tomb. So you see, if somebody is going to fake a document, they have to polish it, isn't it? If somebody wants us to believe in something, why would they use women whose testimony was invalid at that time? They could have used some figure who has authority, power, or and is men. And so why this is unpolished document? It's a hallmark of authenticity. So now think that gospel is correct for now, because unless if you read it, it's not gonna spark the light in you. But let's say gospels are correct and we see somebody named Jesus does such claims, okay? Maybe that person, Jesus, have been deluded or insane. Clinical psychologist Dr. Gary Collins observed that Jesus displayed none of the traits of mental instability. he exhibited profound emotional control, empathy, and wisdom. There were no signs of paranoia, hallucination, or delusional behavior. His teachings are among the most coherent and ethical ever recorded, followed even by those who reject his divinity. Even people who rejected his divinity, and they see how his teachings are coherent and ethical. So you see, a person who has a psychological problem cannot speak in parables and respond with sharp intellect to these hostile questioners. That's what Jesus did. He talked in parables and responded so intellectually to Pharisees who were trying to trap him. And he made claims that aligned with Old Testament prophecy. But some of you might say Old Testament is wrong too. But I mean, for now, just listen to me. This is not the profile of someone out of touch with reality. You see, that is absolutely out of question to say he has a psychological problem, because some people come and say maybe he has schizophrenia, and I'm like, have you ever seen a schizophrenic person? Look at his teachings. Okay, character and morality. Could Jesus have been lying? Maybe. Well, Jesus claimed that he is God, and we see he doesn't have psychological problem, but maybe he is a deceiver. Maybe he has been lying. Let's consider this. A liar willingly wanting to endure torture, humiliation, and crucifixion for something he knew was false. We humans go on to lie, even hide the truth, in order to not get tortured or humiliated. How can a wise person such as Jesus, who had so much empathy and compassion and had profound emotional control, is willingly enduring torture for something that is false? Liars lie to gain power, safety, and comfort. Jesus gained none of those. Instead, he was rejected, beaten, and executed. He didn't have any material possessions. His moral life was unmatched. He taught love for enemies. Look at around you. People always teaching retaliation, hatred, non-forgiveness. If he did that to me, I'd never forgive him. I'd never look at him again. Jesus taught love for enemies, care for the poor, integrity of the heart. Even skeptics like Thomas Jefferson and Albert Schweitzer admired his ethics. If you're an atheist, you probably know Richard Dawkins. In one of his debates with John Lennox, he admired the character of Jesus. So that is no doubt his character and morality means this is not a lie. What he said, what he claimed, is not because of psychosis, it's not because of hallucination, it's not because of lie. Now, and I said eyewitness testimony, all the truth that exists in the gospel, that if somebody wanted to fake it, they would have polished it, not leave it like that. Now, manuscript and documentary evidence. The New Testament is the best preserved text from antiquity. Over 5,800 Greek manuscripts with portions dating as early as 9225, like the Rylands Papyrus, confirm the reliability of transmission. What we read today, the Bible I have today, is the same as it was, according to 5,800 Greek manuscripts. In contrast, most classical texts, like the Odyssey, Homer, those kind of texts, they have less than 20 copies, the earliest dating to 500 to 1,000 years after the original. Scholars like Bruce Metzger affirm that the textual integrity of the New Testament is over 99% accurate. Extra biblical confirmation. Now, you might say, Gospel is written by the disciples because, well, they were Christian. How about if such thing happened as a divine nature came on earth and did wonders and miracles? How about other non-Christian historians, sources? Joseph in Antiquities 18.3 mentions Jesus' crucifixion under Pontius Pilate, his reputation as a miracle worker, and the resurrection belief. So Joseph is a non-Christian source. He mentions such thing. Somebody named Jesus who did miracles and wonders and was crucified under Pilate, but there was a belief that he resurrected. So that's what Tacitus in Annals 1544 confirms that Jesus was executed under Pontius Pilate. So Tacitus is another non-Christian scholar who have recorded Jesus' execution, and Pliny in Letters 10.96 describes early Christian worship of Christ as a God. So they describe that Christian worship of Jesus as God. Now, they were not Christians. They were in fact hostile or neutral. Yet they confirm core elements of the gospel narrative. Fulfilled prophecy. This is mostly talking to the Jews. If you are a Jew, or if you're a Jew who is now a secular person, listen to this. Jesus fulfilled at least 30 major Old Testament prophecies. Here are a few. Born in Bethlehem, Micah. So, somebody gives us a book. It has this books in it, Gospels, and then we go on to historical accounts, psychological, moral, the claims of the person in the Gospels, and we see that the person supposed to be is born in Bethlehem, and that's something being mentioned in Torah of Jews in the book of Micah 5:2. And we see that person entered Jerusalem on a donkey, which is mentioned in Zechariah 9:9. Betrayed for 30 silver coins, which is in Zechariah 11:12. Pierced hands and feet, Psalm 22. Silent before his accusers, Isaiah 53:7. So this is, I wouldn't believe to say that somebody intentionally trying to fulfill Old Testament maybe Jesus was a Jew who was trying to fulfill those prophecies and stayed silent to accusers because of that. Or he chose to be born in Bethlehem or enter to Jerusalem on a donkey and be betrayed for 30 silver coins, which is not in his hand. So I won't believe in that. Buried with the rich, Isaiah 53:9. Mathematician Dr. Peter Stoner calculated the odds of one man fulfilling just 8 of these prophecies, and the chance is 1 in 10 to power 17. That's like marking one silver dollar, mixing it among 2 feet deep of coins, covering Texas, and picking the right one blindfolded on the first try. That's how low the chance is. So it's not like Jesus was a Jew trying to being really good at Old Testament prophecies and trying to fulfill all of them. It's not possible. The resurrection evidence now. The resurrection is the foundation. So Lee Strobel, who was a journalist and atheist by writing to this book and becoming Christian, he mentioned something. Resurrection? Without resurrection, Christianity is a house of cards. And that's exactly true. If somebody claims they're God, they must resurrect. So there's the evidence for resurrection. Maybe Jesus didn't die. But you might say, if resurrection even happened, maybe he didn't die. Isn't that we have near-death experiences these days? Maybe it was something like that. And then you go read this book. There are details that Dr. Alexander Metrel, a medical scientist, mentions from the type of the wounds and the beatings and things that happened to Jesus' body. He does a very detailed analysis that is impossible that Jesus didn't die. He died, confirmed by Roman execution, spear wound, and medical analysis that he mentions. It's just impossible that he survived the death. So he really died. And it happened 3 days after. I think this is such an incredible plan to really rule out that in the cases when it comes to Jesus, because it happened 3 days after. Nobody has come to life after 3 days, really, after that amount of trauma. The tomb was empty. Even enemies admit it. So the tomb was empty. And you know, when Pilate crucified Jesus, Jesus prior to all this told them that he would get resurrected. And because they wanted to prevent disciples from stealing his body, they put guards everywhere around the tomb. Roman guards to, guarding it all the time. Post that appearances, over 500 people, including skeptics like James and Paul, who first they were persecuting church and then they come to Christ, they mention they saw Jesus. And could it be like mass hallucination? The hallucinations happen to be chaotic and random. It cannot be hallucination. Like everybody is saying the same thing. That's not what we call hallucination. Radical transformations. Fearful disciples became martyrs. They were cowards, and now they go on and preach the gospel. They are ready to give their life to Jesus. If he was just a spiritual teacher who died, why would the disciple fabricate the scene of resurrection by stealing his body to get more persecution? Because they were really fearful when Jesus was in the hands of Pilate. They were feared. They denied him. How come after his death now they're going to risk it again and go and steal his body and now get even more persecution? That doesn't make sense. So theft of the body doesn't make sense, especially that Pontius Pilate would put a lot of guards. In fact, he was smart to know that. What if disciples steal the body and fake the resurrection? But he would put a lot of guards. And women were the testimonies for the empty tomb. And everybody admitted it, including the enemies. So the resurrection is the best explanation of data. It cannot be stealing, cannot be hallucination. Theories such that are, I think, are very, very unfit. So what emerges is a compelling portrait. Jesus claimed to be God, lived a morally flawless life, not like any human being. Nobody's like that. It is extremely hard to forgive enemies. I have come to Christ and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so hard. It's a lot of time. It's really hard to get rid of hatred. He lived a morally flawless life, fulfilled ancient prophecies, was crucified and confirmed dead, rose again with multiple eyewitnesses, sparked the rise of the church and changed history. This is not legend or myth. This is evidence-based faith. So now my question is to you. Let's say, with all your heart and mind, you accept all these evidences. Now what are you going to do? If you are atheist, are you going to stick with that simplistic model, atheism? How does it explain all these things? How does it explain resurrection of a dead body after 3 days? How does it explain all those miracles? All those instant healings? How does it explain all those things? So if you're atheist, you should stop and rethink. If you're Muslim, what you have, the book, all the evidences to divinity of Jesus. Why would you want to stay with the religion that is you've been born in? You have the truth now. Maybe, well, I'm not saying, there are lots of branches coming out of Christianity, coming out of Christ. But my argument is read the main document, Bible. I understand a lot of figures, a lot of saints are really important in the history of different religions because they were the ones who spread the laws that Moses brought from God, and they gave branches, but they introduced new books, and there are changes of the facts and truth in those books. What I'm saying, read the original, read Holy Bible. And if you're Jew, I think evidence is overwhelming to Jesus being the Messiah. And so if these things that I talked about sparked only a little bit of faith in your mind and heart, I think that's enough. That's enough because God will give you more. God says if you have a faith as big as a mustard seed, it's gonna grow to become a large tree in your heart. And the birds can nest on it. The birds being the ideas, your thoughts, your lifestyle. So it's really important to have that faith. And have longing for truth. What is true? Don't settle with what's in your hand. Well, I think if you have longing, truth will come to you. So I went through a very long journey. I come from science and engineering background, and that longing for truth, for everything conceptual, I bring some like mechanical metaphor. The longing for truth is like a balloon. So you blow air to the balloon. Now if you punch the balloon, immediately the air rushes out. It wants to join to the source. But why? Because the moment that you capture the balloon inside, you capture the air inside the balloon, it gets constrained and its pressure increases. And when you punch it, it wants to rush out. So I say the longing for truth. Like I was so thirsty to know what is my reality, who am I, what is the truth. I want to join to the truth. I want to be one with it. That's like the air inside the balloon. I remember, I said like I'm data scientist right now, but I have background in engineering, and I always loved physics, but it wasn't what I studied in university. And a few years ago, I wanted to study quantum mechanics because I was like, oh, this is the most recent theory in physics and everybody should know about it. I have to go study it. I bought a book and started reading, and when I was reading it, tears came to my eyes because it was so beautiful. It was so always inspiring reading that theory that it just made me more thirsty to understand, like, who am I? Like, how could this law exist? It's weird, strange. Yeah, so I think what I want to say from this video is have a little bit of faith. Do not settle down with absolutely there's no God or absolutely, I have this religion and it must be the truth. And so have the longing for truth and have faith, and more will be given to you. More and more. Love you all. Leave me comments.